So I'm recording this. Today is May the 12th, and this is lesson 3, alone. And so we're just talking right now about, is there some learning that's happened for you so far, something that you're putting together that is helping or enlightening you?
I can go. Well, you know what? Like I know this idea. It's not like the first time I've ever heard it. It doesn't matter whether you're alone, if you connect with, Holy Spirit, God, universal love, whatever, then you don't have to feel alone. But I get that I never get it. I never get it deeply because that keeps on coming up for me. And I keep creating physically alone experiences when I never have to. So I just keep on operating it. I know the answer, but I don't seem to be able to. It's like a lifelong journey. And it's really interesting that here even when I found someone I really wanted to spend the rest of my life with, I only got 8 years and then he died. And so it's kind of, and I can work with my mind. We were talking about it yesterday. I don't have to feel alone, just as you said. But, like some of us with COVID haven't been touched in a year, like no touch. Like it is, like it is quite something to have these experiences. And I guess I'm creating that. Have I created the pandemic so I could experience absolutely no touch for a year? It's quite an extreme alone experience. I mean, it's better now that I've come up here because it doesn't feel like, well, there's no COVID here. People are still careful, but it's not as extensive as in Vancouver, where really people wouldn't come in your home. I mean, talk about, or touch each other, just the regular hugs from friends, or even sit at a table beside somebody and knock their elbow, like all of that. So I have I created the pandemic? Have I created my husband's death? Have I created all this from my experience of, because I sure have had physical aloneness.
Right. And so we all experience physical aloneness. You came into separation to be in a body. And when you're in a body, it looks like you're separated from everything. And so if you could tell a different story, Diane, so that's one story and totally get it. If you could tell another story, what would this story be? Like if we reversed it?
That this is an opportunity for me to have a physical aloneness, and it's a great opportunity to not feel alone, to really connect with Holy Spirit, to God, to all that, and just know that I'm part of the great ocean. It's like I get this opportunity, and lots of people who are married will never have it because they have their partner coming home every day. Like they don't get to have the opportunity that I do. I get to be completely alone for days, and over and over again. So I really get to know this, where other people have kids and husbands and people around, they wouldn't even know what I'm talking about. They don't even get that opportunity. I do.
No, for sure. And the big opportunity you get in that is that you get to see your own thoughts.
Yeah.
Because you get to see what you're thinking, right? And we are all creating COVID as one. It is the result of our combined frequencies, right? We are part of the one. We can't be separated out of it. So together we're creating the world that we see. But you're creating the particular world you see up in the Yukon. I'm not seeing that world. You're seeing that world. I'm seeing a different world sitting down here. So what we want to see is how our thoughts are related to our feelings.
Yeah.
Most important. So you've got a great opportunity there to journal and to look at it. And I know it's a type of present Maybe there's this deep subconscious part of you that really has wanted to look more deeply at yourself. You did have an opportunity to be with a guy quite recently, right?
Yeah, yeah. And he,
And he didn't
well,
take.
that was, yeah, it hasn't, I guess it was about 8 months ago that I saw him last I saw him was last October.
I think this is an interesting conversation because I can say, as someone who has children and right now a young child, and I'm also married, that so often I feel totally alone. That the nature of, and particularly with my marriage, I feel more alone with my husband than I do when I'm physically alone, if that makes any sense. It's an interesting idea.
It makes total sense, because I think lots of people feel alone in a room full of people, or really alone in a marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Very common to feel like you're with people, but you're not really with people. You're not connecting in with them.
Yeah.
So what is the thought that would be going on when I'm in a room full of people and I'm feeling alone?
Not on the same energy wavelength.
Yeah, not on the same energy wavelength.
Not connected. It's
Not
just kind of the same
connected.
thing.
Yeah.
If you really got into some dark stuff, it might be people don't like me, or I'm unlovable, or I'm just not enough to really engage to people.
That could be one side for sure. If we always reverse it, remember the book's called Reverse Thinking, right? So whatever we're doing, we want to reverse the thinking. So if the thinking is I'm all alone, no one is connecting here with my thoughts or who I am, what am I thinking about myself? Not about the other person. Let's try and reverse it and think about, what am I thinking?
I'm thinking something's wrong with me, but the truth is everything is exactly here for my learning.
Mm-hmm.
It's all here for my learning. And the truth of me is that I'm loved. And the truth is that my partner or this other person is spirit in the form of love.
Absolutely. I would say if I'm feeling I am not connected to the outside, it's because I'm not connected to the inside. If what is showing up is I'm not connected here, it's because I'm not connected here. It's always the reverse. It's like, oh, okay, so where am I not connected to myself? That becomes the, I always say these things are gifts, because if you get excited about looking at them, they can give you great treasures. Right? So if I'm not connected out here, how am I not connected in here? What am I doing? How do I disconnect? That would be the question. How do I disconnect? And looking at the ways, like we just looked at, how do we distract? When you weren't here, Allison, we were looking at how do we distract ourselves from interconnection is really what it is. Most of our whole world is happening out here for a lot of us, and that's what the whole physical duality is meant to do. It's meant to have you looking out here. I have this, and I've showed it to a few of you. I love this quote. I use it all the time. Before you judge others or claim any absolute truth, consider you see less than 1% of the electromagnetic spectrum, and you hear less than 1% of the acoustic spectrum. So we are concentrating on the 1%, that we can see and hear. There's a whole bunch out there, that because we're looking at the physical spectrum, right? There's a whole bunch in the other parts of the spectrum that we could connect with, but we're just not taught how to do it. We're not taught how to look within, how to connect within. So this is asking, so how would we do that? I guess that's the question, right? How do you do that? Some ways that you guys have done it.
How we connect with ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Well, how do you connect in?
Yeah.
Yeah, with my inner voice, the source, whatever.
Yes, absolutely. How do you connect in? The very first way, the key to connecting in is your emotional spectrum.
It's knowing whether I'm in my right mind. If I feel good, I'm in my right mind.
That's
In many
right. If you're
cases,
feeling good, you're
I
in your
feel
right mind.
shit, I'm usually in my ego and my wrong mind.
100%. If we're not feeling good, we're having some thought that is hurting us. We're having a thought that's hurting us, and that's what we're meant to uncover. What is the thinking that is hurting me? Because nobody else is ever hurting you, right? That's the I cannot be unfairly treated piece, right? Nobody else can do this to you. You can only do it to yourself. Because if somebody else was sitting in your chair, they might be doing it differently and seeing different things based on their culture, their upbringing, their whatever. I'm just going to quickly bring up Esther Hicks, emotional scale, guidance scale. This isn't in the course, but it's a good thing to use. The course talks about using your emotions, but Esther has kind of got these interesting.
Can I just
Yeah, go
make a
ahead.
comment, Diane?
Please.
You started out asking what is it that we've gotten from, what if there's anything specific.
Right.
And for me, it feels like an integration of all of these different teachings, which is looking at the ego mind and what it does, which I've been doing for a long time, and it's felt very difficult.
Right.
But
Yes.
I realized that I have to do that. I get it, and
Right.
and there's times where I switch and I do come out of it.
Right.
However, I'm not, I haven't been integrating to now. I feel like when something happens and I understand and I know when I feel crappy, or when I'm following some kind of a belief where my ego mind is taking charge. But now I can actually see and try to find the words that will, like you say, reverse my thinking. But it's almost like an integration. I don't know if that makes sense. It's like all of these things are now integrating, and now I'm going through all my journals, and I'm picking out all of the positive things that I've said, because the negative ones I don't even want to look at again. I've done it. I've shed it. It's like I don't need to go back. I can, maybe it'll come back in some form. But I really realized that the focus, because I've taken myself through the mud and through the basement, that now that I can reverse this thinking, and it can happen quickly.
It can
Right?
happen really quickly. It can happen in what they call a holy instant. And
So,
really, this is really great, because what's the opposite of separation?
Connectedness, oneness.
Integration, oneness, connectedness. And that's what we're trying. And I'm saying the 1% that's visible and audible, there's 99% that isn't visible and audible. And so what is there? There's a lot, right? I mean, right now there's songs playing, there's podcasts playing, there's all kinds of things happening in the airwaves, and I'm not tuned into them. But if I have the right device, the right radio or whatever, I can tune into them. You are exactly the same. You are like a radio tuner. You can tune into other frequencies besides the physical frequency that you see. And that's what's really exciting, is there's this whole 99% that we weren't taught to tune into, but we're actually made to tune into. And when you start to see that the world is a reflective holograph of your thinking, it starts to get really exciting. Because you start to go, holy shit, I thought that, and then that showed up. Wow, I'm powerful. I'm a creator. You know, and you start to get your power back rather than blaming situations. We start to see, oh, wow, okay, I can see how that is showing up for me because I'm actually the creator of it. I'm actually thinking it. This is the part we're really not told. And so I love what you're saying, Gina. You're starting to put the pieces together. And that's why the course says it's not a course in theory. It's really a course much more in practicality. You actually have to do it for yourself, because a lot of the principles to our conditioned duality don't make any sense. We were brought up, if you can hear it, see it, touch it, it's real. And if you can't see it, hear it, touch it, it's not real. I'm telling you, I'm not saying that the physical world isn't real, but it's only 1%. There's a whole bunch more that you can learn to tune into. And that's just so exciting. And a lot of it is your thinking and your feelings, because they're invisible. You don't know, you don't see them actually going out and then bringing it back in. But quantum physics says exactly this. That is exactly what's happening. Yes, Gina.
Well, and I was going to say, when I take that 100% responsibility, when I'm choosing the crappy ideas and thoughts, that is me choosing them. It's just, I'm not in my right mind at the time. I'm not, so I'm choosing them. I'm not going to beat myself up about it. I'm going to continue to just nurture myself through the process. But there's got to be a time where I don't choose those shitty feelings and thoughts anymore, you know?
Exactly.
And it's up to me entirely, 100%, without going, Gina, damn it, you did it again. You know, I don't.
The course does not want you to beat yourself up with it, because it just reinforces everything we're talking about. What it wants you to do is to just start to notice, not beat yourself up, just notice. Wow, I'm having that same repeated thought. I wonder why I keep repeating that thought. I'm not loved. I'm not accepted. I'm alone. Why am I doing that? Because it's hurting me. So use it as a curiosity point, not as a beat you up point. I love your word, Gina. Nurture yourself. Give to yourself. For giving to self. Not for withholding from self, for hurting self. I mean, we've been taught how to hurt ourselves really, really strongly by our culture. You know, sit down, don't talk, be quiet. You know, I don't care what you think. You know what I mean? Like all of these things go in.
Yeah.
And then subconsciously we run the programming. And we don't see how we, so what we're trying to look for is, what do we believe? What do we believe? Do we believe what we see with our eyes and ears? Yes, to a certain extent, that they're showing up in front of our face. But what could I believe that I'm not believing? So what could I believe that I'm not believing? That, so if I'm beating up on myself, you know, like I'm feeling negative and bad and alone, let's show this screen here, share this screen. Look at the emotional scale. Here we go. I don't know, it's pretty small. Can you see it?
Not very well.
Yeah, I don't really know how to bring it up. How do I bring it up?
Command plus.
Command plus?
Well, first of all, go to the page, click on it so it goes right to the image.
Okay,
There.
there it's better.
Command plus will make it bigger and bigger.
Command plus. Okay, thanks, Diane. That's helpful. So you can see here at the bottom, fear, grief, depression, despair, and powerlessness, insecurity, guilt, and unworthiness, jealousy, hatred, revenge, anger, discouragement, blame, worry, doubt, disappointment, overwhelm, frustration, pessimism, boredom, contentment. This is moving up the emotional scale. And so the problem with a lot of us is that if we're down here saying discouragement, or we're in overwhelm, jumping up to joy and love is quite a big jump, right? And if we're down here at anger and we want to come up, actually, you know, if you move from anger into just feeling disappointed, it's a little bit better. So this emotional guidance system is your key to eventually getting in touch with hearing your own inner voice. You all hear your own inner voice. You just don't call it that. You call it my gut, my intuition, my
Feelings.
my feelings. But when your feelings are negative, right, they're fear-based, almost always. I am alone. How is I am alone fear-based?
It's not the truth.
Victim.
All fear-based things are rooted in separation. It only sees separation. It doesn't see unity. It only sees separation. And separation is always rooted in fear.
Is it possible that it's association though, that we feel that way? Because using the word alone or the concept of alone for some people could be a very happy thing.
It could be. Some people, like my husband, love to be alone. If he doesn't get enough alone, he's cranky. So it
So it's
depends.
our association or our experience or our belief or whatever.
100% it's your belief. And that's what we're trying to get down to. What are your beliefs?
Because even happiness, I mean, I can use happiness in a negative way to, yeah, but I'm covering something else up, a negative belief. I can also have the belief of happiness where I'm free, but I also can use, it's.
You can use anything both ways. That's why, the yin yang symbol has the little dot of the other. The white has the dot of the black and the black has the dot of the white, because that is duality. Duality, turns from one thing into another. I always remember at the end of Jaws, after the guy went through all of that, the big shark trying to eat everything and the boat was destroyed and his friend was killed and he was lying in the water hanging onto a plank. What was he doing? He was laughing. He was laughing, and I thought that's so appropriate. He's had so much trauma and violence, it's turned into the opposite. It's just ridiculous. It's just so far beyond what he could ever imagine. It's now funny. And so this is always turning. And so it always looks like we're each having this different story. Actually, it's the same story. It's just worded differently. And the story is, I'm separated. I'm not loved. I'm alone. I'm unjustly treated. It doesn't matter what word you picked. I'm not supported. I'm whatever. It's all rooted in fear and all rooted in separation. The Course is saying the body is a separation tool. And when we see death every day and hear the body count on the news, it reinforces the fear. Right?
I'd like to, I know you probably want to get on to the actual class, the lessons and stuff, but may I address something that kind of fits in with what Allison and Diane were saying? And
Yes.
So, this feeling of being alone when you're with somebody,
Mm-hmm.
I when I when I was married to Don, or Don was my common law husband for about 24 years, and
Mhm,
he died
mhm,
about 7 years ago.
mhm,
But sometimes when I was with him, I felt like he didn't share his thoughts with me, like that he had stuff going on underneath that he didn't share.
mhm.
And and it made me feel I when that happened I sometimes wondered I thought things about myself that weren't nice, like I kind of criticized myself and said things like maybe he doesn't trust me enough to open up to me, or maybe just sort of like not good enough type of thoughts that I had. Why won't he share with me? Why won't he open up to me? um why is he closed off like that? That kind of thing.
Mhm. Yeah,
Like just sort of belittling myself about it.
yeah,
And years later, it's weird how life unfolds. Like I found out a lot of things about Don since he's died. Like
yeah.
some things have fallen into place about his death, about his life that I never knew before. And just a few months ago, I don't know if I've said this already in the Course in Miracles, but I talked to his auntie who was only a year older than him, and she's like really a neat lady. Don loved his auntie Denise. And I found out things about Don's childhood. It all just sort of fell into place. Like I didn't know these things. Like he always spoke nicely about his mom and dad, but I knew there was something wrong there, because they didn't call him very, like he would call them once a year at Christmas and have a long talk, and it was always nice and they were always happy. But they never called him throughout the year, and it was weird. It was odd, I thought.
It is weird.
Uh, yeah, they never called him, and I thought he was like the black sheep, but I didn't know why. Had he done something or whatever? So I found out that his mother used to have kind of like breakdowns where she'd just go in her room and scream for several days, like cry and scream. I had no idea that he went through that as a child. He never said anything bad about his mom. And I always thought it was his dad who was too stern, which he was, apparently. But I had no idea that the mom
Well, she
was
was having kind of a psychotic break, right?
kind of like that, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So Don grew up with a family that was kind of messed up, and he did hold things inside himself, but it had nothing to do with me. I was hurting myself all that time, thinking he wouldn't get close enough. I think what it was is he just wasn't able to deal with some things in his own life. And here I was making it something about myself, and it wasn't.
Hmm. Right.
And
Absolutely.
so
Great
blaming
learning.
that, hurting myself with my own thoughts about things.
Diane, that's all we're doing.
Right.
We're all hurting ourselves. We want to believe it's somebody else, but
Yeah.
it's all happening in our mind. And when we see that, we empower ourselves because we can choose again. So Allison, who maybe hasn't read as much of the Course in Miracles, it talks about the ego mind, which is a mind based in fear and separation. And it talks about, and that's the wrong mind. And it talks about the right mind, which is based in love. And the whole thing is just simply, let's stop thinking from fear and try and find out how we're doing that, and let's try and move over to think from love. So anytime, Diane, that's such good learning, right? It was not about you. It's never about you. It's never about you. It's always about the other person and what they're thinking in their own head, and nobody can ever really know that but that other person. And not only can they not know it, but they only know, I think that first video I had you watch, like what's conscious is only about 10%. 90% has fallen into the subconscious. And so that pops up in symbolisms and emotions and other ways. It doesn't present itself consciously. So we want to pretend we're happy consciously, because that feels better. But the minute we go unconscious, and how we go unconscious, how do we go unconscious? what are the ways we use to go unconscious? I'll say one right away: working,
Yeah.
Avoidance.
avoidance,
Mhm.
Watch TV or look at their phones.
watch TV, get totally involved in social media, get obsessed with somebody else's problem, not our own,
Eat ice cream.
eat ice cream, drink too much wine,
Drink too much tea.
Yeah.
you know, whatever. Like, you can use anything. My sister uses shopping. It's always wonderful to see, because she always comes up with the most amazing things. I'm like, where did you get that? And she's always gone, like, she's obsessed with going to thrift stores and finding treasures. And she does, she finds these amazing treasures, but it takes up a lot of time. It fills up her house so much, it's so cluttered, and then she can't think and she goes into overwhelm. So it's an interesting pattern to watch. You know, but we all have a pattern, right? And it's just trying to, yes, Gina.
Sorry, I was just going to comment about and if I'm 100% responsible for my thoughts, I can't be responsible for anybody else's thoughts. Or
Exactly.
so for me, I just use it's none of my business. It's and that brings me back to me being responsible for my own thoughts, because what I'm thinking is that I'm thinking, like you say, Diane, you eventually came to the idea that that it wasn't about you. You know, it's always and 100% about, not about the other person. It's about me and my own thoughts. And no, and that's where I'm connected to oneness. That's
Exactly. And so the big thing is, the Course is saying that when the reason you want to identify some of those thoughts that you have. So first of all, you identify the emotion, then you try and identify the thought. And the reason you try and identify the thought is you want to choose again. You want to change the thought. And, you know, so your big tool is your ability in life to choose. I mean, I think that there's a book written on a guy that was in the Nazi camps. And he said, basically, you can take away anything, everything, but you can't take away my ability to choose what I think. And that is my freedom. I choose to be free in my mind, right? And you can't take that, no matter what you do. You can't take that. Hector, somebody, I think his name was. So this is the big tool. Choice, choose again. That's why I think the program is the program you call, Gina, Choose Again.
Yeah, that's it. And that it's based on when you're at the center, it's 100% taking responsibility for everything that I think. And then, yeah, it's just teaching how to choose again, which is exactly what you're teaching, Diane. It's
yeah, it's just, and it's, you know, there's lots of things that can help when you're feeling bad. If you notice you've got an emotion, you know, on the emotional scale that isn't feeling good. I was talking to Diane Simpson about being in nature, going to creativity. We all have a creative drive to do something, and that creative drive is part of the eternal love, because God is a creator and we are made from that. We are a creator. So getting back to your creativity, being in touch with nature, asking for assistance, knowing that it's not your fault. You know what I mean? That you at your essence are love, your perfection. You want to come into alignment. And the reason you want to come into alignment is just like the radio. So right now there's lots of songs playing, but you're not hearing them. But if I had the radio and I could tune into the right station, you'd hear them, you'd hear the songs. The same is true for you. When your radio is on anger, you can't hear love. You can't hear it. And if you try and turn it to the next part, you know, you might just get static. You can't hear it until you align. You got to get right on the station. So when people say to me, I can't hear my inner voice, it's because it's being blocked by listening to another station. It's really all you're doing. You're deciding what it is you're listening to, and what you're listening to is your own inner dialogue. That's what's happening. So let's go to.
And Diane, your husband, I just want to say one thing before Diane goes. I had a very similar experience in my own childhood. My mom also had sort of psychotic episodes. She would go and scream and cry and go into bed and for long periods of time. And my parents had a lot of conflict in their marriage. And later on, my dad ended up being hospitalized the last 10 years of his life, roughly, for medical issues. And he probably didn't call me for 5 to 7 years once. And we were extremely close. But I did go through an incredible process of, from a very young age, but thinking about your husband, my thought would be that he didn't want you to feel like you couldn't love him because of the experience that he had, because he probably felt some sort of huge sense of loss.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, generally people are trying to save us mostly.
Yeah.
When they don't tell you negative things, it's because they don't want to hurt you. When they're deeply hurting themselves with their own thinking.
Yeah.
And, we're just not taught to pay, this is what the whole mindfulness is, right? The whole mindfulness is stay present, try and figure out what's going on, basically, so you can let go. Because as long as that little hamster wheel is in there turning around, you're just caught.
Yeah.
You're caught, right? And that, Allison, is where we usually say we're stuck, is when we feel the hamster wheel, right? Oh God, gotta get off this thing. Help me get off. Okay, let's go to sharing the screen here. And so the story, did everybody read the story this week?
Yes.
Yes, great. So, I start out with the story of my mom. As a child, I always felt alone. I made up a story, came from another planet. I landed in the wrong family. No one seemed to understand me. My mom was baffled and bothered by my questions. Go away. You ask too many questions. I don't know the answers. Leave me alone. Or when things would go bad, she would go and lock herself in her bedroom and cry and scream and tell me to go away. And sometimes if I did something wrong, she would go in there for a week.
Oh, no.
So I would get the message. I was really bad. I was definitely bad. And that I was the reason she was crying and upset. So, I just had lots of questions. Where is God? Why don't we talk to him? How come we don't go to church? Why do some people suffer more than the others? Because it seemed quite clear to me at a young age that people were suffering, and they were suffering everywhere. And that didn't seem fair or good to me. My dad tried to answer the questions the best he could, but he believed we came from dust, we go to dust. And it was just too simple for me. I thought the whole universe has come from somewhere. There must be more than dust to dust, right? So Dad said, well, the world evolved from gases and molecules coming together. And I didn't doubt that this was true, but I just didn't feel it was the whole story. So my dad's answers just left me cold and searching for love. Needless to say, I felt alone. This feeling persisted in my life for many, many years. I don't want to be alone. So I searched for relationships that would comfort me and not leave me abandoned. This is another chapter in my story about the search for the perfect relationship never worked out either. Although I must say I gave it a valiant try. The fact of the matter is we all feel alone at times, whether it's alone physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. It is a common human experience. And so we've all experienced, times where it looked like we were alone. We were the only body in the room. That's what our eyes and ears told us. There was no one there to hold our hand or assure us things would work out just fine. So why does the Course in Miracles say we are never alone? What do you think that is? Let's just stop this for a minute. What do you think that is? Why does Course in Miracles say you are never alone? Never. And it's very, very emphatic. You are never alone.
I can address that.
Okay.
I really feel that we are spirit, we aren't body, but we're not feeling or experiencing that, as you say, the 99% in the room. we always have our spirit guides, we always have our higher self, we always have Holy Spirit, we always have love, but we don't realize all the help we're getting all the time because we're not seeing it.
We're not acknowledging it for sure. We are told that the minute we thought we separated from God, which we never actually did, but we are thinking we did, which is why we're having this experience, because all physicality comes from thinking. When we thought we separated, God created the Holy Spirit, or the connection between where we are, whole, perfect, and love, and where we are now. So it would be our way back home. That's your inner guidance. That's your inner guidance system. Everybody was given it. And so you just have to learn to tune into it. And then there is, as Diane says, this other 99% of information, beings, help that is available to you, but it's not seen with the physical eyes, right? This is what's really hard. The only way you can prove it to yourself is to start asking for the things you want, being sincere, loving the things that show up in front of your face, and watch how things begin to shift and change and move, because you have to make that connection between the world is doing it to me, to the reverse side, I'm doing this to me. And so and that's such good news that I'm doing this to me, because I have control over that. I don't have control over other people in the world, right? So by now you might be asking, how do I find this inner connection, this small voice within? It's important to acknowledge that you hear the voice time to time. And who's heard it as intuition before? Yeah, mostly we hear it as intuition. It's like somebody asks you to do something and you get a feeling that I should or shouldn't do this thing. And then we have to try. And, mostly we go against our intuition in the beginning because we aren't taught to follow it. So we do what we think is, quote, right or acceptable, or, I know for a lot of my life, I didn't want to hurt people. Because I believed, so here's a thought, I believed I could hurt people. And so I believed I didn't want to hurt people. And so I would do things I didn't want to do because I didn't want them to hurt themselves. Talk about backwards, right? But it's a really real common belief, right? I don't want to hurt Diane Zitko. She wants me to go to the play with her tonight. I'm really tired. I actually need to stay home and take care of myself. But instead I go to the play with Diane because I don't want Diane to hurt, right? As if I can stop Diane from hurting. As if I'm God and I can decide how Diane feels, right? This is kind of how we've really twisted it. Okay, back over here. Are you seeing this again now? So anyway,
I might offer a suggestion.
Yeah.
By the time it comes to my screen, it's so tiny, but you can actually make the font bigger on your screen, like the actual font, but maybe for a later date.
How do I do that? Command plus?
It said pinch.
Yeah, there you go.
Said pinch. Oh.
Yeah, you
Well,
just did it.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
We can pinch our own.
That's fantastic.
Oh.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank Diane.
Command plus makes it bigger, command minus makes it smaller.
Thank you. Okay.
On a Mac.
So basically, I thought relationships would, help me not feel so alone. And so I really spent a lot of time in my life focusing on relationship. And actually, relationship is a good place to be focused because it's where most of our learning comes, is from relationship. But try as hard as I might, it just wasn't happening. I dated and dated. I had all my ideas about what I thought would be good in a relationship. But the older I got, the more exhausted and unhappy I became with the dating game. Finally, I decided to have enough. I put away my list. And what I said is, God, I'm obviously not very good at this, or Holy Spirit, or universe, or force, or whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to put my list of what I want away. and I'm going to put it in your hands. I put my list behind a framed picture. So every time I looked at that picture, I would remind myself I'd given away. I'd said, you do this, not me. I've tried. I'm not good at it. So I'm handing this over to you. I know I want a relationship, but obviously the way I pick it, it doesn't work out very well. So I'm handing it over to you. And then of course, guess what happened? The person who next, and I said I'd be willing to pretty much date anybody as long as they weren't dangerous. I wasn't getting a dangerous feeling from them. But, being bored or being not physically attracted or having them not have enough money or the right job or any of that, gone. So guess what happened? I wanted someone who'd never been married. This man had been previously married. I wanted a man who was tall. He was short. I wanted a man with kids. He had two. I wanted a man who was spiritual. This guy had gone to the Catholic Church and he was bitter about the whole experience. He wasn't interested. So blah, blah, blah. To this day, I really believe the Holy Spirit picked my partner for me.
I love the last two, Diane. The last two, I wanted a man with hair. This man was bald. I wanted somebody gentle. This man had been in the army and barked out orders.
He did. He did. He still barks out orders to this day.
I love that.
Oh, he still is a barker. Okay, so basically what happened was I truly didn't pick them. I was open to dating the list, open to another part. Basically, the course wants you to open your heart. What we've done mostly is close our heart.
Yeah.
We've said, if, this is the 100 ways I closed my heart. I wanted a man who was tall, so I was closing my heart to all the short men. I wanted a man who had no kids, so I'm closing my heart to all the men who do have kids. I'm judging. And what I wanted to do was stop judging. So anyway, I knew from direct experience that no one could make me happy. I was the only person who could fill that job opening. And when I stepped into loving myself and connecting with my own spirit, as I searched for the answers to being alone, I learned I was never alone. My past experience had taught me that there was a connection there in the invisible. And as a matter of fact, my husband, actually, I'd known him for years. I just never considered him dating material. What I did discover through all of this is I didn't need a partner to be anything other than who they truly were. I didn't need them to be, have so much hair and be tall and have this amount of money or, that job or whatever it was I was thinking. I discovered that when I connected in with me and loved me, anyone I could accept and I could learn how to work with, because the love that was happening wasn't happening because I had the right person. The love that was happening was because I was loving what was showing up in front of me. And I was accepting it. I wasn't judging it. And in that place, you feel the love. And when you feel the love and you connect it to someone else, they feel the love, and guess what happens? Both of you start to feel love, right? I could be with someone on the outside without needing the person because I was happy on the inside. So I think my husband, I don't think I could have married my husband at any other time than I did, because I was so working on myself. And I had decided that it wasn't the image that showed up in front of me that needed to make me happy. That was wrong thinking. What I needed was to feel happy in here. And once I felt happy in here, then it was reflected out here. And that, I think, is what brought the person, right? So the work is all internal to get externally what you'd like to show up, right? And so there's that whole thing in that video, fake it till you make it, right? Like at first it won't feel comfortable saying certain things because your subconscious has been saying other things for a very long time, right? So I'm just going to go up to the exercises now. Let's try and share my screen again. Have you guys looked at the exercises for today?
Mhm.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think some of you even done them, right? So let's
We were,
explore.
we were supposed to do lesson 2, right?
Yeah, we weren't
Exercise,
gonna do
right?
lesson 3. Yeah, that's for this week. So alone, so basically alone is a physical illusion, right? We want to switch our focus from outward seeing to inward listening, where we can discover the opposite is true. We want to learn to listen for our own thoughts. If we can't hear the small, still voice for God, it's because we're not aligned yet to love. And so we just watch our emotions, right? So the exercise for this week is look within to find you are never alone. Here's something interesting that happened to me. When I was feeling alone, I turned my inward to meditation and asked, why do I feel alone? So I asked my own inner voice, why do I feel so alone? The answer I got was simple and illuminating. You just need to change. You just need a change in perception. My dig or my divine inner guidance said, instead of alone, try thinking all one. The truth is we are all one with everything. We are connected. We're just not looking at the 99% where we're connected. We've been taught to only focus on the 1%. And then when do you feel most alone? Make a list. If you feel most alone in a crowded room, why do you feel alone? You know, answer that. And then how can I think differently? So in this case, if I go, I feel most alone in a crowded room because I don't know anyone and I'm not talking to anyone, or I'm not talking deeply to anyone. It's all just fluff. And the reverse thinking is I can remember everyone feels alone. And when someone reaches out, it always feels better. Perhaps I can be the one to reach out. So that was sort of mine. And then the journal. Next time you find yourself thinking I am all alone, and you're tempted to think thoughts that can be harmful, like no one cares, try thinking we are all one. So what are the thoughts? We're going to break into breakout rooms and think, let's try and identify some of the thoughts that make you feel like you are separated or alone or isolated or whatever. Okay, so we'll just go to couple of breakout rooms for 10 minutes. I'll put in 2 breakout rooms. I'll just try and identify those thoughts. 2, there we go. Everybody clear? Okay, here we go.
By that family.
Yeah.
When I was a little kid, it's only when I grew up and did things that were not what they would want that I started feeling. But most of my alone experiences happened growing up in the outside world. It had to do with how I felt treated by my peers and stuff. Um, at home, my dad was into spiritual things, and I could talk to him about anything. Like we talked about reincarnation and Buddhism and meditation and all sorts of things, like his psychic experiences he'd had. We talked about any question under the sun I could talk about at home. But when I went out into the world and made comments like that in a class, I was ridiculed and disliked by people. So I felt alone. I felt hurt by my peers, like just in high school and even in late elementary school. Even though I had some very close and nice friends who are still my friends to this day, I felt, generally speaking, like I was a weirdo. Like people thought I was different or weird, or I didn't feel accepted. So some of those thoughts, I felt really uncomfortable in a party or a crowd of people I didn't know. I wasn't good at small talk, and I felt judged and unloved. So I was very uncomfortable in those type of situations. And so my reverse thinking would be that I can reach out to others, get more involved in life, and make friends. Ask people how they're doing, like instead of being so self-centered and thinking about not being loved, just reach out. So that was then. I don't feel that way anymore in a party, in a group. I feel much more comfortable and I can more easily talk to people. But
So what do you think the core thinking is that needs to reverse? I heard you say it really clearly.
it has to do with being misunderstood and unloved. It has to do with like being scared of people, basically, and not untrusting of them.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so what I need to realize is that there will be people who aren't on my wavelength, and there will be people who are, and it doesn't mean that I'm a bad person, and I can simply reach out to people and extend myself to them instead of expecting them to come to me.
Mm-hmm. And so the core thinking that needs to reverse is, I felt judged and unloved. I felt misunderstood. So those are the key issues that need to be reversed. Because when you say to yourself, I feel judged and unloved, what shows up in front of your face is judgment and unlovingness.
Yes.
And we are not connecting that our thinking is producing our reality. So yes, you can reach out. Yes, you can love people. All of this is really good, but the core thinking that needs to shift is, I feel judged. I feel unloved. I feel misunderstood. So when you reverse it, how can I not judge myself? Stop judging myself. And how can I love myself? And how can I understand myself more? So all this work is what you're working on, right? This is exactly.
I love and accept myself.
Yes, I mean, because you're judging yourself, you are feeling unloved. So you are having unloving and judging thoughts, because you can't think that without having that.
Right.
So we just want to reverse it and go, okay, how am I judging myself? How could I love myself? How could I stop that kind of thinking and start focusing on forgiving to me? Because once if I think I'm unhappy and I keep having unhappy thoughts, what will happen?
I'll attract more of that to me. I'll attract people treating me the way I don't like to be treated.
Exactly. You will attract unhappiness.
Mm-hmm.
And you will reinforce it as reality. And so we have to, and it starts by just writing out the things, no judging, just, because really, that's the big thing we're trying to get away from is judging. And that's why we use the mechanism of judging or choosing again to get out of it. That's what got us in there. That's what's going to get us out. Yeah. So have to think, okay, where am I judging myself? Where am I harsh on myself? Where am I unloving to me? Because Diane, you were a beautiful girl. I don't know how you can go around thinking you're not beautiful. You are very, very beautiful, and you have a beautiful spirit. And, but it's interesting how we don't see that about ourselves. We kind of nitpick at ourselves with all of this stuff. And you know what? It has nothing to do with the physical. It has to do with the feeling of you. You have a beautiful spirit. You have a loving spirit. You have a giving spirit. You have an abundant, and you have quite a funny spirit too.
Thank you so much. So kind.
It's not kind, it's true.
Thank you.
Anyways, I'm going to leave you guys to chat amongst yourselves. I'm going to go to the other room.
Thank you, Diane.
See you back in about 5 minutes or so.
Okay, bye.
Life became unalone too. I mean, I can just, yes, I can work on just my mind, but I wonder if there's also anything externally. Like for example, like I know people who just made sure that, like, it's too late for us now, but they got a husband at a young age, they have kids. They obviously they didn't, I guess, believe they were alone because they created all this world where they're not alone. Like somehow we have
Like
created worlds where we're alone, like physically.
But there's a lot of people that have children and husbands, like Allison in our group, who feel very alone, who feel extremely alone, even though they have created those sort of physical things. She actually has a couple kids, but so it's not about a physical person. Yes, yes, we'd like them. Yes, actually, you won't be able to avoid them. They will come your way. You can't stop it. But yes, there are some things you can do, and we discussed those yesterday, right, Diane? There are some
Great
things.
We just talked about being creative, grateful, but those are all still being physically alone. Like, do we want to also keep being physically alone?
No, you don't want to keep being physically alone, and you won't be constantly physically alone, but you are focusing on the 1% and making the 1% your total reality in this situation. And there is a whole bunch more going on. You do have support. You do have beings that care about you deeply and who are working with you every day. And, maybe now is a chance to try and play with that.
What if I go to a dating site,
Yeah.
right? If I go to a dating site and I'm trying to remedy my being alone, I can find somebody, but it's not going to change my thinking. So it's my thinking that got me to this place where I'm thinking I'm alone. That's going to keep going until I look at my the way that I'm, like you say, all the different ways that I think I'm alone, and until I reverse that thinking.
Yeah, you will just keep creating the same situation over and over and over again. Because every time you think you're alone, you put that into the computer, you type it into the computer, I am alone, and it shows up on the screen. And so we are trying to go, the course says, thoughts do not leave their source. In other words, you're the one thinking it, you know, and so we're the ones who have to change it because they don't go out into the world. And so, do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, and I mean, I keep on saying, I'm connected, I'm connected, I'm connected to everything. And, you know, sometimes I'll try to connect with the trees, but I still feel alone. I can't deny it. I mean, not every moment, but it's almost like I'm trying to override something that doesn't feel true. I just feel I'm physically alone for days and hours, and it doesn't, you know, whether I'm in, you know, I wake up alone, I go to bed alone, I cook my 3 meals alone. I feels like I'm trying to say something. I know you're saying it's all the 99% that I'm got all these angels and guides and I don't feel them really. I mean, I can think it, but it doesn't feel really true.
It's not going to feel true. It's not going to feel true in the beginning because you've been grooving that record for a long time. And the groove is deep. And the belief is deep. And that's why the course says you don't have to believe it in the beginning, because you won't. And I fought pretty much hard with every single principle in the course. I never opened the course and liked it. I hated it. I put it back on the shelf for 7 or 8 years and didn't even look at it again. You know, it's only in practicing. That's all I can say. It's only in practicing. You only convince yourself. And right now, that's exactly what you're doing. You've convinced yourself. I can't make you change your mind.
I knew you, Diane, before Gunnar died, right? And you would come to Choose Against circles and the same belief would come up. And I'm not saying you know, Diane, you are believing that you're alone. It's not that. It's not even that I'm putting it. It's that the same idea is playing. It's playing over and over in my head too. You know, I can entirely and 100% relate with the idea that I'm alone. But now what I realize is, holy shit, I don't have to be alone with this idea. This just makes me feel crappy. So I get to say I'm not alone. Oh my God, look at everything. This is beautiful. I'm not alone. You know, just changing it and finding the good feeling that is associated with being alone.
Right. Yeah, I would say, Diane, with you, I would suggest trying to find physical things that make you feel happy. Just try and move up the emotional track. Painting, having a friend over, focusing on nature, going for that hike, you know, little things, journal. You are alone, you know, in physically. I don't want to deny that you are. But that thought is making you unhappy. That and thinking that thought today will make you unhappy, and thinking that thought tomorrow is going to make you unhappy. So I'm saying, why not just have a little willingness to think, I am not alone. There's a lot of things that I can be connected to. And what are those things that I'm connected to? You know, we have to try and work with the reverse, because if we keep thinking the same thought, the same thing will show up in front of our face, and it's not making you happy. And we would like you happy, because we know that you are beautiful, loving, really happy, joyous soul. And the belief in death is really a big one, because the ego really wants us to believe it, because it proves we're separate. It's the ego's foundational belief. Death is real. where for me, I really believe death is just strictly a transition. It's not, it's the death of, yes, I lose my body suit. But when I was hovering over my body and they were operating on it and I was looking down on it and I knew I was okay and on the ceiling and I was looking down at my body and I asked myself, do I even care about it? I didn't even care about it because I was fine. So that's when I taught myself my body is not who I am. It's not who I am. And I don't even feel a whole bunch for it, which is why I can overeat. Anyways, we should probably head back. Did you get a chance to say something there, Gina? About what you were doing?
Yeah, well, I think I've looked at, the many ways that I'm alone. I really want to do the reverse thinking now. That's where I'm at. It's just with everything. Like I'm literally going to go through all of my journals, change everything to the I form, change everything that I'm saying to the I form, and not take out, because I realize that my negative emotions serve a purpose. So, but not to keep focusing on the negative, to find that
Yeah.
the thing that actually makes me feel good, that resonates.
Yes.
On that level of love.
Right, exactly. Okay, well, I'm going to go leave this room and I'll close the rooms and we'll come back together.
Yeah.
Okay. Just waiting for Gina to come back. One of the things that if you have A Course in Miracles, we didn't go over the points in A Course in Miracles where it talks about being alone. And I'm just going to share the screen a bit again.
So I had a question about that actually. When you're speaking about the course, it's not your book, it's like a course book.
Yeah, it's A Course in Miracles book. Here it is.
It's an intense book.
It looks
On many levels.
okay.
Here
Beautiful
it
book.
is.
All right.
And it, believe you me, it was very intimidating the first time I picked it up. I thought, oh my God, no way. It looks like the Bible and it's full of all kinds of religious terms that I thought I'd long ago left. And so I just put it back on the shelf and didn't even look at it again for 7 or 8 years. And it wasn't until I was in deep pain that I pulled it out and I had one specific question and I turned right to the section that answered that question, which was my unfairly treated question. And it said, you cannot be unfairly treated. This is another form of the idea that someone other than me hurts me.
Right.
Right. And I didn't understand it at the time, but I really wanted to. So I started attending a study group. So you can look here, Allison, and see some of the quotes. Here, I'll just show you. I did put some in the
So have all of you guys done the Course in Miracles? All of you, others?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
they've all been looking at it for quite a while, eh? I don't know. How long have you guys been looking at it?
Well, I was introduced to it in the 70s when it first came out.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean I really got into it deeply.
No. No, most people get introduced to A Course in Miracles and really don't look at it again for years. That's the story of many, many people I know. Lynn had it for years. I was given it in the early 80s. I put it away on the shelf. You have to be ready because it is not easy. So you can look at this section under the discuss section. What does A Course in Miracles say about being alone? Counselor once asked me, what are you really afraid of in life? And I said, I'm afraid of being alone. He got a puzzled look on his face. He said, from everything you've told me, it looks like you've always been alone. And I thought, wow, I've never thought of like that. And he was right. I had always been kind of alone. There was no support from my family unless I worked for it. They were just too wrapped up in their own problems. In my mother's and father's eyes, I was strong and therefore did not need their attention or support. In fact, my mother said to me the other day, you know, you should be really proud of yourself, Diane. You worked 2 jobs to get yourself through university. Yeah, I could have used a little support. But, you know, now she's proud of that. And, you know, anyways, what a joy it was for me to finally discover that I am never alone. Personally, I found this treasure by looking within, by believing my inner guide, and not relying on my outer circumstances. As I practiced listening to my inner voice and turning my troubles over to someone other than me, a higher power, I experienced a connectedness I could not deny. I learned I just needed to ask. I'm never alone because the inner voice for God and for love, which the Course in Miracles calls the Holy Spirit, is always with me. It will lead me with inner prompts and messages. Allison, the reason I'm in BNI is because I listened to my inner guidance. I didn't want to go. I didn't like it. But my inner guidance said, yes, go. I'm like, oh, shit. So anyways, these are some of the quotes you could look up in this book, that sections that talk about, you know, like the lonely journey fails because it has excluded what it would find. You cannot be alone. I'm always with you. When I said I am with you always, I meant it literally. I'm not absent to anyone in any situation because I am always with you. You are the way, the truth, and the life. You did not make this power any more than I did. It was created to be shared and therefore cannot be meaningfully perceived as belonging to anyone at the expense of the other. So anyways, there's a few sections that you can check out there. And then we're journaling this week just about what we just talked about in the room. And then the meditation for this week is the quote I just read for you. You cannot be alone, as I am always with you. So wouldn't it be wonderful to maybe have an experience of that? Have an experience of how you aren't alone when you physically appear to be alone. Because that is what's going to teach you that you aren't, that you can't be, right? So anyways, let's have just a quick wrap up discussion about what happened in the breakout rooms and if there's any questions or anything before I send you off on your day. So how about room 1? That was Diane and Allison.
Allison, do you want to share?
Well, okay. My thing is that I feel like it's the opposite for me, where I feel like I have been alone, I guess, but I'm really actually quite happy with that. I'm like quite happy to be alone. And my difficulty is not being alone. I don't know if that makes sense, but so even being in relationships, choosing relationships where fundamentally I am still alone.
Okay, so let me see if I can understand that. So you pick relationships where you fundamentally feel alone, but you want to be alone?
I'm comfortable being alone. I actually really enjoy it. I think maybe it developed as a coping mechanism as a very, very, very young child, like a baby. But I'm not okay with it. But what I do find is that when I quite often go into relationships with friends, or certainly with husbands or boyfriends or intimate relationships, I typically choose relationships where I still stay alone. And my fear is almost giving up that aloneness because it could hurt. it's like holding back, asking for what I need because
Right.
it might be painful. Yeah.
Exactly. Like you, so in other words, I've learned to deal with the pain of feeling alone. And I'm worried that if I let go and ask for what I want, it's going to hurt more than. And it sounds like you've learned to be at a pretty good place with being alone. Like my husband, lots of people do like being alone, right? But would you say that it makes you happy?
Most of the time, yes.
Yes. And so then you see why you have what you have.
Yes.
Yes, 100%. And so I see why you wouldn't want to move on from it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because in essence, you are creating sort of a safety for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
know I can be okay when I'm alone, and this is a relationship where I am alone, and I know how to deal with that.
Yeah. And then usually gets to a breaking point. But we need to hear from everybody else.
Okay, let's hear from everyone else.
I have a, like, I think for me, when I am in situations like that, I always ask myself, what is it for? What is being alone for? What does it get me? What do I get from it?
Yeah.
You know, and then it allows me to start seeing what my mind is doing.
No,
Well, it sounds like in this case, she gets some degree of safety.
yeah. Peacefulness, safety.
Yeah, safety. It's her safety. Yeah. And so what would it look like if you broke out? You know, maybe you're happy here, but maybe you could be happy up to here.
That's basically what I think I've just realized.
Yeah.
Recently.
Yeah, you sort of capped your happiness level. And that's okay because I'm used to this. I mean, I think we all do that, right? We do it with all kinds of things. Okay, let's hear from other people before we end. Diane, how are you feeling, Diane Zitko?
I was thinking about the pros and cons of being alone when I was writing down that I do like being alone in the sense that I don't, some of the problems that come in relationships, I don't have those.
Well, that's very true. Believe you me, relationships bring problems.
Yeah. I don't have people projecting their stuff onto me. I don't have arguments with anybody except for myself. I don't have people taking my time away from the things I want to be doing. But at the same time, I'm creating my own distractions and my own problems through my own thoughts. So you're faced with yourself when you're alone. It gives you an opportunity to work on yourself when you're alone. I kind of like it right now. I never thought I would like it.
Wow, that's a
But
big deal.
I always thought because I went from one relationship to another, it was like at home with my parents, straight into being with Larry without any break, any time on my own. Straight from Larry to Dawn, and then Dawn died. And there was, other things in between, but it's hard to describe,
Wow, this sounds like a gift for you, Diane.
but it's now been 7 years I've been on my own, and I thought I'd be so lonely, and I am at times lonely, but I also like it a lot too.
Exactly. Well, that's a big discovery, Diane. I don't think I've ever heard you say that.
Yeah.
So that's a big discovery. So well done.
Yeah.
And Gina, how about you?
Not so much in the discussion group, but just now through this conversation, I realized that I feel like I want to distract from being alone.
You want to?
Because then when I'm alone, I actually have to look at myself and I have to look at what my thoughts are and my feelings are and all of that. So like I can see it both ways. I could see it as, you know, this internal process, and as well as externally what I'm trying to do. My ego is trying to cut me off from this idea that I'm connected, so that I don't have to look at how I'm connected, really.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, the ego doesn't want to look at that. It's got a whole bunch invested in itself being right. Yeah, it doesn't want to look at places where that might not be true. And Diane, how about you before we end?
Well, actually, I love lots of alone time. I remember my husband used to, when he'd stay home from work some days and work, I'd go, he used to joke, he'd go, oh yeah, Diane, you know, that I didn't want him there because I love my alone time. But I used to love him coming home also at the end of the day. So I think I like a mix, but because I am physically alone right now a lot, I'm going to really try to work on my reverse thinking and just being, you know, thinking I'm connected, and you know, I'm also going to put myself, you know, inviting somebody over for a walk or a hike, you know, because I do enjoy people as well. And then just to have a combination, but I am really going to work with my reverse thinking.
Hey, wonderful. Well, remember, it doesn't really matter in the yin and yang, in the wholeness, it doesn't really matter what side you take. It matters that we feel who we are, which is at our core and at our essence, which is love, which is joy, which is creativity. And so some ways to get connected back to that are gratitude, ask for assistance, and start doing something creative. You are creators at your very essence. Find something you love to create, whether it's music or baking pies or, you know, finding, you know, sewing the perfect clothes for your dog. You know, it doesn't matter. You'll notice that when you are doing something you love and you're creative, you're in your essence, and it's you often lose track of time, because that's actually where you feel the eternal, the timelessness of who you are. So it's a good way to start having that feeling, is to get some good creative projects. So I picked a card to end on. Oh, look at it, it's orange, do with my orange thing. And the card for today, and we'll just have a little meditation on it to end. Love this one. There is no order of difficulties in miracles. A miracle, Allison, being a shift in perception. So shifting from a miracle defined by the Course is a shift from thinking from fear to thinking from love. So that's what a miracle is. There is no order of difficulty in miracles. One is not harder or bigger than another. They are all the same. All expressions of love are maximal. So I'll read it one more time. We'll just meditate on it for a minute to end. There is no order of difficulty in miracles. One is not harder or bigger than another. They're all the same. All expressions of love are maximal. So I'm asking for miracles to appear within your lives so that you can see the shift in perception. Whatever it is you fear, may it shift into what you love. May you extend that love to others so that as you extend love, so you will receive love back. Track it in your journals, because we don't remember what we had for lunch yesterday, and we forget the miracles that show up in our lives really easily. So write down what you ask for and journal when it appears, or journal when you see it not appearing, and ask yourself, what is the thought that has this appear in front of me and not what I'm asking for? I'm sending you all love, joy, and I hope creativity in the next week. Do something creative. All men, all women. I don't know why they say all men. It's so weird. Okay, any questions? I can take them now or I'll end the session.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you,
Thanks.
Dan.
Yeah, I love spending time with you. It's
Yeah,
all
thank you.
good. Okay,
Bye.
I will connect later. See you next week.
See you.
Bye.